start off with just sit comfortably in a chair. Bring whatever you are sort of familiar with in Tai Chi, if anything, in terms of posture into this, or have the space to do that, but don't force anything, because this initial period is a lot of it is about just letting your attention settle so that you are aware of what's going on in your body. Where the sensations of breathing and other movements in your body has been with your weight in the chair, on the floor. Open your hands together. And fingers get a little bit warm with friction, and then tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. Down to one shoulder. Your arm. The other side. And the upper your chest. Belly. And finally your legs. Kicking back and focusing a little bit more on this feeling of dropping into the chair. And you can develop that a little bit with just by, if you think about this top part of your body, chests, upper backs and shoulders, just sort of deliberately, very gently, just stiffen up and then just release that stiffening. Feel the way that when you do that, you sort of drop back a bit more effectively in the chair. It feels as though more of your body sort of comes into contact with the chair. We're going to do the same thing with their lower back, hips, buttocks, and just tense up a little bit and go. So this is what we call releasing or letting go. And the thing to focus on is not so much the technique, because we're doing it quite big, but rather the sensations in the muscles and your body as you let go. You know, letting go is a useful phrase in this context. It's like kind of a really tight feeling suddenly becoming loose, like you just put a bag down and you've been carrying a heavy bag around and you put it down. There's that sort of sense of relief almost. So now you have something to sort of remember, something to call upon. Come back into the upright position. Be a little bit more particular about your posture. If you can be, without straining your back, be forwards in your chair, tilt forward slightly so you can feel some of your weight in your feet. If it is straining your back, then sit back, give your back some support. But again, that middle part of the body from back to knees, just tighten up a little bit and drop. So we drop into the chair, of course, into the floor. But also when you do this, when you tighten up, you may notice again your shoulders tightening. So they drop down. And there's also a sense in which your body's sort of dropping inwards. And when you stiffen up, the big muscles of your back and sides, for instance, stiffen up and kind of push out. And then when you release them, they drop in and they almost fall into this central part of your body, that where your skeleton sits. Do that one more time. And this time, try and just stay with that sense of dropping into the chair, dropping into your skeleton. And one of the things that we start to realize when we do this is that we don't need that tension, we don't need that tightness. We've often held it for so long that it becomes the norm, and it's all very well to say just sort of like release the tension, but if there isn't the sense of something kind of replacing that, then that's going to be quite hard to do. So we learn a sense of confidence in our body's natural structures, the natural ways that our body begins to support us. And that helps this process further of releasing tightness and stiffness in our body. And that in its turn opens up the possibility of some space within the body for movement. So just slowly turning your head and trying to get a sense of where that space is about to end. And don't push hard against that, or don't push at all against the edges of that space. Just let your head turn the other way. And hands in front of your shoulders. With the movement in your chest and your upper back, big muscles there, and as though they're being very gently massaged. And then go the other direction. Hands down to your sides, elbows out a little bit, and just rotating your arms from your shoulders. So again, maybe also aware of chest, upper back. And just letting these movements, very simple moves, very important movements, gradually draw more of your attention into your body. And winding around. Just letting any other thoughts, any other things pushing in, sort of just drift to the back of your mind. So when you start thinking about something else other than Tai Chi, then when you realize you've done that, again, there's a releasing feeling. You just gently sort of mentally, if you like, let go of that thought and bring your attention back to whatever movement you're doing, your posture and so on. Go back the other way. We learn to do this almost intuitively. Rest your hands. Now, tilting on your pelvis, bringing your head forward, bringing more of your weight into your feet, and then using your legs, pushing into the floor, push your shoulders back. So those thoughts and those extra thoughts won't go away, and they keep coming back. This is quite normal. And so a significant part of the practice is to refocus your attention, to not get sort of drawn into those thought patterns while you're doing the practice. And rather than just thinking, right, I've got to stop thinking, which isn't going to happen, is it? it's a redirection of your attention into the movements that we're doing. So one of the aspects of Tai Chi is as a movement meditation. And we basically use the movements, using awareness of our postures, our movements, whatever the movement happens to be, as an alternative focus for our attention. Now, turn just a little bit in your center, so more of your weight's going to go into the leg that you turn towards. Making a distinction between the sensation in what we would call the full leg, where the weight is going, and the other leg, the empty leg. Something that we come to the standing part of the class, I'll refer back to. Turn in the other direction. These are foundational qualities of our weight sinking down, the rooting down, where our body's responding to the pull of gravity, the movement of your weight and the turning in your center are vital components for the later movements. Now turn, so pelvis rolling around on the chair, drawing your shoulders and your head around in a small circle. It's as though the circle is actually inside this square. If you think about your feet and your hips, they're like the corners of a square. And the circle sort of touches the side of the square at certain points, but doesn't go beyond them. Change direction. This movement very much coming from the center of your body, that area between pelvis and waist. One more time. Okay. Up back to the center. And then just to get your legs working a little bit, step out, put your heel down, lower your toes, just gently press into the floor, then come back. Call this planting the foot. So you want to have a sense of what the appropriate length of your step is. You don't want to stiffen up in the knee, for instance. And you want to be able to just apply that gentle pressure, the sort of pressure you might apply to a plant that you've just potted. You're just pressing the earth down around it. And then on the other side. And then come back to this. So these are all things that we will be integrating into the later movements, these basic principles of posture and alignment, of rooting down, of moving from the center of the body, moving in the space that's available, finding the path of least resistance. These are all background intentions. Your hands drop down. Turn your hands palm forwards. So the first exercise, bird folds its wing, rocking forwards, rotating your arms. Do one more of these. From the forward position, keeping your hands facing backwards, fisherman cast a net. When we move the weight like this, there are two sort of stopping points. One is when most of your weight comes back into your hips and you sort of settle in that. And the other Same idea with your feet. And in this exercise, as you do that, that's when your arm swing past your hips. I can only do this with one arm with the back of the chair. You see, I move my weight back, my arm and my hand drawn behind my shoulders. As I release and settle into the chair, my arm swings through. Same thing going forwards, settle into my feet, swinging through. Another way of thinking of this, very common image that we use in Tai Chi. So you're moving through water. If you were doing this in water, then your arms will quite naturally get drawn behind rather than leading. One last time, leaving your arms out in front so that now as you come back, they're drawn up a little bit, as you're rolling the ball in towards your chest. So we get to here, you push down to your feet, the shoulders start to move back and then your arms follow. If it were a ball, imagine it's being just a little bit heavy so that in the first instance, you go back and you feel a slight pull in your arms. And as they start to contract, that helps to pull the ball in. Don't lift your arms, or at least not to begin with, because if I'm here and I lift my arms, they'll disconnect from the ball. However, once you've started doing that, what you may notice is a sense of a rise in movement, like a wave coming up through the front of your body, and that wave will come up underneath your arms, start to raise them a little bit higher. Take your time from here, letting your arms drop, feeling their weight hanging from the shoulders, and then easing forwards. This time, as you come back, turn your hands palm in, draw them. Just pigeon spreads its wings. One more time. Once again, from the forward position, see the hands here in front of your hips, leave them there, letting your elbows come out a little bit. Turn the hands palm forwards, pushing wave, a gentle curve upwards. So again, I can do it with one arm, but you see, as I go forwards, I let my elbow come in. You see the shape of my arm. And then it's as though the movement forwards is pushing my elbow forwards. Notice how my arm just naturally swings up. It swings up because it's attached at one end, and it's also because of the shape of the movement. So what we don't want to do is to get to here and think, I'm going to lift the arms, or you lift the arms and push, or whatever. Just let the natural structures and movements of your body create the pattern in combination with this shaped curve in your arms. Pushing wave. One more time. Now, your hands drop down until they're just above your thighs. Loose fist with both hands, turning towards palm up as you go back, and then rotating towards palm down as you go forward. So once again, the rotation is in your shoulders, not just your wrists turning. There's a movement that can have quite an effect on your shoulders. If you find halfway through you get kind of stuck with the rotation, don't force it. Now, this time from the forward position again, open your fingers, coming back, winding your arms out, and then press again. As you go forward, your hips are dropping back, but your head is going forwards, so your spine gently lengthens. So in the end, what you will feel is from the base of your spine, excuse me, from the base of your spine, up your spine to your shoulders, over your shoulders, and down through your arms. This is one long line, like almost like an elastic band being extended out, but not tight, not to its full capacity. One more coming back. The end of the movement, turn your hands palm down. Turn a little bit, go forwards again, that same lengthening through back and arms. Swing around, drawing your hands around in a smooth circle, come back to this central position, settle there, and then do the same thing in the other direction, polishing the table. One more round. And then just let your hands rest. So all of those movements, they have a sort of horizontal energy to them, the transfer of your weight from hips, feet, from feet to hips in various sort of combinations and ways. The next set of movements are more vertically inclined, but we still want to be able to use our legs and our hips. Think about it in different ways. I sometimes think in terms of when I go forwards like this, say, the pushing wave. It is like a wave coming from my hips forwards, pushing my body forwards and draining away through my legs. The same idea going back. So that's one way you can think of it. And then when you want the vertical movements, it's a gentle press down through both feet and hips at the same time. So the two waves come together and meet in the middle. If that analogy doesn't quite work for you, another thing you might think about is that if you're going to get out of the chair, then what would happen is you'd tilt forwards a little bit, you'd push down through your feet, and the combination would push you up. So it's like that, only much quieter, much more subtle than that. So Just try it without your arms. Get a feeling of your head and your shoulders dropping towards your hips, the chair, and then with the pressure building up in the center of your body, it starts to expand, and in expanding, it pushes down through your feet and your hips and upwards. So the overall effect, I don't know how well you can see that. I'm exaggerating the movement. You can see I push down, my head goes up, my shoulders go up, and then down. Just do that once more. Now you can do the same movement but quieter, so that rather than feeling as though your head is going up, your shoulders are going up, what you feel is a sense of movement, expanding movement upwards through your body, followed by a contracting movement downwards. Bring your hands around as though you're cradling a ball this time. And that same upward movement, pushing your elbows out, drawing your hands up, and then so your hands are on top of the ball, pressing down. So the upward movement is initiated by that downward movement through feet and hips. The exercise is called rooting down. It's because of this strong association it has in both directions with that downward movement, the dropping of your center of gravity. That may not seem quite so significant in the chair, although it is, in fact. You don't want to carry your weight in your shoulders, for instance. It's the thing that will help us to become more stable. One more time. Turning your fingers out. Turning to the wild goose. Once more. And then easing forwards just a little bit, just enough to let your hands float in front of your knees, back to the original position to push up, parting the clouds. So far, these movements have been fairly symmetrical, haven't they? Left and right are doing the same thing or trying to do the same thing. We often notice that it can feel slightly different, but leaving that aside, both arms are going up and out and so on and so forth. On the time. This time, stay back. Your arms drop down. Give yourself a moment to feel the weight of your arms hanging down. Try not to sort of artificially hold them up. And then the gentle push down. Expansion, pushing your arm up on one side and then the other. So we have that same pattern within our body of expanding from the center, from the ground beneath us, and then contracting back in. But with this exercise, part of our attention, a part of our intention is a bit more discriminatory. We're choosing to express that movement on one side. And then on the other side. Dragon plucks the stars from the sky. G rising and falling through one side, following our intention, and on the other side. One more round. Your hands around in, shell up again, and then pushing in two directions. Same idea of the movement, rising from the ground. Then push out sideways. Again, your body expanding and contracting. Nice, steady, pulsing rhythm, calming rhythm. This time as you push out sideways, turn a little bit in your hips and waist. And then the other way, back to the front, and then facing forwards and push out. So pushing in four directions. One more round. Notice how the contraction brings both your hands and your attention back to that central part of your body. It becomes the place that we choose to rest in. The final time, and now just extend one foot, let it rest on your heel, making sure your knees just a little bit bent. Tilt the pelvis forwards, hips dropping back. And as your head goes forwards and down, your back just again extending and then contracting inwards. Now, fist your hands, drop back. So as you go forwards, an upward inflection, grasping the tiger's ears. Notice what happens here. If I slow the movement right down, I go forwards. Again, my hands left behind. They turn so that the palms would be forwards if they weren't fisted, and that opens the chest. My head has gone forwards and up, and almost like there's a football coming, and I'm trying to head it. And the combination, bringing your arms around, chest opens and contracts. All of these will bring your arms forwards. There's an intention to do this movement, grasping the tiger's ears. One more time. Change your feet over. Have the right foot out. And then starting again with scooping the sea and looking at the sky. Looking for a consistent quality of movement, as though For instance, with this one, your back would be very gently massaged, for instance, even though it's quite a strong exercise. Now changing, grasping the tiger's ears. And those different elements, arms lagging behind, the rotation in your arms, the closing of your chest, the lengthening in your back. One more round. Come back and sit. Once again, give yourself a chance just to review your posture. A slightly more complicated movement. Start off though by just rocking your weight to and fro. Turns, once again, we did this before earlier. So going forward into your left foot. And when you come back, going more into your right hip. How your body turns. Turn to your left, so you bring more of your weight over to the left hip. And then once again, turning towards this time your right foot and back. Think about an X shape with a line underneath it. That one more time without the arms, and then this time coming back, turning into the right hip, hands by your sides, just resting there, but quite dynamic resting because your body's moving, your arms are moving as a consequence. So I'm going forwards, and from this position, simply raise your left hand. So feel the expansion through that left side of your body, pushing your hand up until you can comfortably look across your fingers, kind of into the mid distance. And then same thing on the other side, going forwards, turning, expanding. And so now, combining those different elements, so your arm is swept up, come back, leaving your hand at shoulder height, coming across, turn both hands, so they're now holding the ball between them and over into your left. Same thing again, the right arm swinging up, the top hand just pressing straight down, finishing a little above your thigh, just in front of legs. Back, heart in the wild horse's mane. It's a little bit more complicated, but basically combining different aspects of those foundations. One more on each side. And then again, just letting your arms rest. Feel the weight of your arms on your shoulders and how that just allows your shoulders to drop a little bit. So, once again, rubbing your hands together. Tapping over your face. Over your head and neck. One shoulder, your arm. The other side. The upper part of the chest. The belly. And your legs. Push your arms, push your heels up. So your knees come up. Just activating a little bit the muscles of your legs before you try and stand on them. And then circling around. Back the other way. And then if you wish to stand, just stand. So we want to try and reproduce those ideas in the standing position. Now, obviously, structurally it's going to be different because there's not going to be a chair there. But the sort of qualities like releasing, letting go, and rooting down, and so on and so forth, should all be present. You now have, hopefully, some kind of reference point. You know, what does it mean to release in your hips, so on and so forth. So we've got to think about our structure, our posture. We need to be able to stand in such a way that when we do drop, we drop straight down into our legs. To avoid leaning forwards, if I'm here and I sort of release my shoulders, I get drawn forwards, and so on and so forth. So a basic awareness of how gravity feels working through your body. For instance, if I get this pole, in theory, in practice, it's quite difficult. In theory, though, I can get this pole and position it so that it's precisely upright. And assuming the floor is completely flat and the bottom of the pole is completely flat, I could just let go of it and that wouldn't happen. The theory is sound. Practice is much more difficult, but we spend a lot of time thinking about this and working with this in Tai Chi. And if you can't get that, then it can be really interesting to, with some of these exercises at least, to use some support. So I would suggest you might want to do that with the next exercise, because we'll repeat this sense of tensing and releasing. Just lift your shoulders up and then drop down. And you know, if you do this and you find that this happens, the chair can be useful. But even if you find it doesn't, it's quite interesting because you can find yourself doing this like this, and there's still a little bit of residual tension there. And sometimes using the chair can be very helpful. We're going to do the same thing. I'll show you from the side with hips. So once again, tension up a little bit, and then this time, as you drop, just letting your knees bend a little bit. Don't worry if there is that little bit of a wobble, because it's quite a difficult exercise. And the main purpose is to remind ourselves what it feels like for our weight to drop. What do these terms, releasing, letting go, softening, actually mean? So what we're going to do, come back to just standing and lining yourself up as best as possible. Starting that process, but slowly this time, of releasing hips and lower back, and just feeling how gravity pulls you down. And then noticing that at a certain point, your legs will push you up. Bringing your hands around, so you're cradling the ball. And so we get this sense of a rise in energy coming up, expanding through the body, pushing our arms up, and then we return, letting our center of gravity drop and priming the legs. Feel the push up again. So the rooting down is certainly important from a point of view of stability. The lower our center of gravity, the more stable we are. And lower our center of gravity, the less extra weight we have to carry on, say, our back or our shoulders. But it is also the process that leads to a rise in expanding energy. One more round. Okay. So now, put one foot forwards. Turn one foot out, step straight forward with the other foot, keeping the width of your step. And about the same in length. Have your weight in the middle. Do the same thing that you've just been doing with your hips. Releasing, letting yourself sinking down, and then feeling the push up. Now, actually, the important thing here isn't that the knees bend more, but to get that feeling of releasing. That may or may not cause the knees to bend more, but it's not about whether the knees bend. So just go into your back leg, releasing the hips, and feel that sense of settling more into the back foot. And feel that sense of being pushed up, but instead of letting yourself go up, let the movement push you into your front leg. Do the same thing there, releasing in lower back and hips, buttocks, thighs and knees. And as you feel the push up, directing the movement back. So again, that quality of releasing, and again, I would emphasize knees need to be soft, but they don't necessarily bend more, but there is a sense of dropping through the body. This is an internal process, leads to the generation of this really important rise in energy. And here we're putting it to use by letting it push us backwards and forwards. So now you can just raise your toes a little bit when you go back, the front toes lift. When you go forwards, the back heel lifts, so more of your weight settling down. If anything, that feeling of a push up starts to become stronger at this point because more of your weight is sinking down. It's like pushing a ball down into water. The further you push it down, the stronger the sense of the buoyancy of the water pushing up. And then just stepping in. Once again, planting the foot forwards. Try that a little bit on the other leg. So go into your back leg, looking for that releasing, feeling the push, directing it into your front leg. Same thing, this time going into your back leg. Raising your toes and your heel. And then stepping in. And then step through. So you go either forwards or backwards, depending on where you have the space. Taking a few careful steps. Change direction. Again, this is an exercise that is interesting to do, maybe with your hand on the wall to stabilize yourself. A lot of Tai Chi involves a lot of analysis, a lot of investigation to understand what's going on, to bring our attention and our intention to the body. And it's always a valuable exercise. But now, have your right foot forwards. With your weight in the back leg, go forward, sink down, and this time the expansion, pushing your arms out, and you turn your body, swing your arms forwards and backwards, bring the rear foot in, step forwards or backwards, depending on where you have the space. Let your hands drop down, settle in to the front leg, feel the expansion swinging around, and then forwards, releasing in your hips. Knees, feeling the push up. It's called Dragonfly Skims the Water. I'm going to change direction. So I'm going to step back, go into my back foot, turn in. Hips dropping back. Shoulders nice and soft. And then change direction again. And this time, if it's comfortable for you, bring the foot in and then raise up a little bit. Only do that if you can do that without losing smoothness of the movement. But if you do this, then your knee coming up really is counterbalanced by your hips dropping back. So again, it's quite a tricky exercise. Don't feel that you've somehow failed. You're getting a few wobbles. It is a tricky exercise to do. Once again, if you haven't done so already, change in direction. So Dragonfly Skims the Water. Good. And you can go back to your chairs, but again, a way that you can practice that exercise, and yeah, bear in mind it is tricky. You could do it. You could do it with, say, I don't know, I'm going to have my left foot forward, my right hand on the wall. So now I just go forwards and backwards. I'm not going to go along the wall, but I can actually start to think about, when I go to lift my leg up, how am I lifting my leg up? Am I tilting? Am I stiffening in my shoulders? And I have a little bit of a chance to play with this and just to find the best way of doing it that allows me to maintain my alignment and my root and my stability as a result. That was certainly something that I did when I started to learn that exercise, because it is a tricky exercise. But something I still do occasionally with certain exercises. it's a good way of giving yourself the mental space to go through this process of understanding what is actually going on in your body. And a key element here is going to be a recognition that we will occasionally wobble around. I've seen lots of teachers, including great Chinese masters, wobble around. It happens like that, but we learn to recover from that, and it's this through this process of releasing and of letting go, and once again building a sense of confidence that that's going to work, that we have the support that we need in our legs, in our back, our skeleton, if only we can access it. But that, I mean, we have to learn that confidence, don't we? And we have to remind ourselves of that as well, because you know it's easy to forget, but it's one of the really useful things to take away with you, I think. And this exercise, this last exercise, Embrace Tiger, Return to the Mountain, really illustrates that. You push up, so your hips are pushing down a little bit, your arms come up, and then before you do anything else, just releasing your lower back and your hips and your shoulders, noticing how that brings your hands around, and then in, and then down again. So the first part is an expansion, but the rest of it is this sense of releasing into your hips, into the chair, and noticing the effect that that has on your upper body, particularly your arms. Becoming familiar with this internal feeling of both mind and body, and energy, just settling quietly. And whether you're interested in standing on one leg or not, for me, it's not a big issue. But I think what's really important is that this three-pronged settling is something that is really useful to us in our lives on all sorts of levels, on a level of mind, body, and of energy. Embrace Tiger, Return to the Mountain. One more round. And rest. So lovely. Thank you very much, everybody. If you do have any questions or comments on that, please feel free to email me. I'll do my best to answer you. But for the enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.